we're the Sifra Tzniuta now. Let's just go over this piece. We have some little stuff to do on the bottom, but let's start over here, number Zion on page Taf Reish Gimel. So just to listen to, we're going to the Pirush HaTalmud here. He said, "Rabbi Bir becomes the Shoniki Noida, Masha Kosev Arizal." He says, "Shetzarik base of Ivurim." Now, so we saw some Pirushim that said you actually three, or there's four, but here so you need three. You need two. Biva Rishon Gimel Klilim Begimel. That's the first one. V'hayichud Rak Derek HaYisod. Now he's introducing an idea. He's going to explain it a little bit what it means to be Derek HaYisod. I'm not sure I understand, but let's just see if we can. So he says that when you have the first Yichud, it's really Yichud only Derek HaYisod. V'achakach Boim HaMuchad HaGadlus, then comes that Besod HaIver HaPam Sheni, Pam Beis. So he says then there's another Yichud. So then the first one is just the Yichud Derech HaYisod. So then let's go over here. Let me see. Get some room here. Then it says like this. Let's see. Did I miss something? He said the Oz that then the Yisyached Yud B'Lechudui. So then we have this phrase that we've been working on. The Yud winds up being by itself. The Zechav V'Leided Rishonis. So this is talking about the first birth. Adkan. That's the Gimel Go Gimel, I guess. I'm not sure. For the Chorek of the Nasach Sifra Tzniuta Irei Kan B'Leided Rishonis Dezer Anpin Koden Shekibu Hagadla. So this is, again, that is what it is. This is a yichud. This is a birth that's taking place of the Vaka Zeranpin, where he's born out like that, or I don't know. It's a Yidei Iver Veleda Pam Sheni. So he said this is before you got to that spot. Now we have a little chesed, number ches on this, and let's see if we can understand ches. So he says, what does he mean here? He's talking about derech yisod. Ki be'es ha'ivor ha'leida ha'bechoisach ha'bemalchus devuka b'yisod. Just think about this for a minute. He says what? He says when you at the time of the eater of the Iver, because that is I guess he's talking about the first yichud. So he said so it's really stuck onto yisod. In other words, it's part of yisod. And because of this, there's always a root of malchus in yisod. So this is like the secret of the tip of the Yisod, or the crown of the Yisod. Ray La'el, look up above, he says, Yichud Zer V'nuk Derech HaYisod. So this whole concept is a Yichud that takes place between Zoch and V'nuk just through the Yisod. I'm not sure exactly how could that work. How does it work? Because the Yisod, that is it has an Ataris attached to it. The Malchus is attached to it. This is like a Yichud Minei Ubei. Sounds like to me. Amnam v'divrich of the Pirush HaTalmud, and v'hemshech as we go on, he says v'mashma the yesh zivug mamash the nukva kodem iver sheni ein sham. So he says that actually happens before the iver sheni. The fizeh yesh the varek of analysis. Then we're going to say what's pshat. Al pi amavur be'etz chaim. This according to what the Eitz Chaim and Shar Akaftas. He said, "The gam kodem godlus godlus," because even before God, this is just not just, but this is a statement. Yesh zivog shall kli varucha. So here he said, what? So new phrase. This is planting the ruach inside of the kli. Ein sham, I don't know. V'zecha v'nikra kam yichud shall yisod greda below mochin. So let's just go over the words because there's kli varucha. So we had the idea the original yichud was for the purpose of making a kli, but I'm not sure what this means. Maybe that's what it means, a kli, and then putting a ruach inside of the kli of some sort, which is the ruach strictly what ruach goes with zeranpin. So this is and then he says v'ruach so v'zer nikra kan yichud shall yisod greda. This is just a yichud takes place in the yisod itself below mochin, without the mochin of godless. So, okay, so that's a little bit mysterious, I would say. let's go on a little bit more and then read. Let's read. If that was number tes. So I think that was number tes. That was number ches. After number ches, it says v'hinech yisod hu besod os yud. The yisod is really the secret also of this os yud, and we're bouncing around with this yud. Has different places and different meanings. It means it looks like this word isyached. It's supposed to mean that it's isolated, something like that. Because now when you talk about that situation before the second ibur, Yisyachad rak hayud, that is the yisod belvad. There's a yichud that takes place only our yisyachad, it winds up by himself. I think it means here, it means it makes a yichud there, in the yisod by itself. Let's look down here at number tes and see if we can understand this. He says, so he says, shal yisod hu sod os yud the zera. Yud Zeira. Just excuse me, I just can't see it quite that as well as I've got to keep my head in the right place. Okay, move the ale and explain the Baba B'Harasayin Sham. V'chein Reba Eitz Chaim, also see over there, he says, V'zel Deshano, Yud Yisod, Yud is Yisod, Yud Zeira K'noida, and it's the little Yud, Adkan. Ritzon Lomer, so what do we get out of this? I'm not really sure what he's saying. He says, Ritzon Lomer, could the Isser Bitikuni Zohar, Vizel Lashona, Vada Tzadik, Chai Olamim. So the Tzadik is the Chai of the, I don't know, of the, brings it to life, all those hidden things. The Ihu Yud Zeira, what is that Chai Olamim? That's the little Yud. The little yud, misipra the chochma the le'ela that comes out of the chochma the le'ela needs also more explanation. Ad kan v'chein is bezoyer, so that this is the little yud. Where's the little yud come from? He says it really is flowing down from the chochma that's from chochma the le'ela that's up above it. Now, so still a little bit vague. So let's go on and see if it gets a little bit more refined and we can understand it better on number ches. So he says, Rei Bahadras Melech, Shabir the Vidarko, he says like this, what's this of the Inyan Nahir Ma'aver Lenukva, that it glows or it radiates, and it passes, the radiation goes to the Nukva. The Zer Anpin, Meir Es Ha'aras and Mochin the Abba. So this is it's kind of like a little bit extension of the idea that we saw there, that we were talking about Chochmah over there, that it appears in this little Yud. That's what's set up above. Now we're over here with the Hadras Melech, and he's saying, "Anpin Meir es ha'aras mochin the Abba el nukva." That's what he does. He shines them to her. And according to that, then, Bir Khan is explaining Shehim Yud Shuhu mochin the Abba. So let's go back to a different definition of what the word Yud means. That Yud really represents the mochin the Abba. Inum Meir Bezer v'Nukva. That's those mochin shine into Zer Anpin and the Nukva. Now, I have a question as to why are we focusing on this? We're focusing on the Yud. Now, I guess that's a question. The question is, what do we do with this? Where's the Yud coming from? So he wants to say that this is shining. This Yud winds up shining in Zer Anpin and the Nukva. Ela misyached v'omed levada, but rather it becomes isolated and it stands by itself. Even though it remains in its place. Now, this to me doesn't make any sense to me. So let me go on. So the so this minute says that is when it's within Zer Anpin, that's what it does. So he says, and then he says, even though that it remains in its place, and then he explains that it's still in Zer Anpin. So then what happens is if there's some kind of a historical, I didn't see the words here exactly, maybe I did, but I didn't recognize it. It says, this has caused the darkening of the Nukva. Why? Because this Chochmah that's coming from Abba into Zer Anpin, I guess is not there anymore. Ki nai the abba b'levash b'nai the ima. Okay, that we know that's how they are. Niknaseh b'mochin to zer anpin. They go into zer anpin. And in zer anpin, no here they shine uma'aver l'nukva, and they take that light. They bring it over to nukta the haina malchus. That is mukva. Okay, no problem. We're quoting. Ki he nehenis mibeis aviho, because this is what we're saying. She gets a hanoah, that is the shefa that comes through zer anpin, but it originally comes from the house of her father, which is Abba, which is Chachma, because that shefa is coming to her. So and it comes through that way. Aval im yisyached yud hu b'lechudohi, but if we want to say that the yud, it becomes isolated by itself. In other words, it's not inside of hagam shehu b'mekomo. So this little phrase here, hagam, whereas it's still in its place, I'm not sure the extension of what he means. He says that it can become isolated even if it doesn't move away. Einu meir bechem, and then it doesn't shine on them. Now, it's not clear to me what he meant by it becomes isolated if it's still in the same place. If it's still in the same place, it's inside zer anpin. Is that what he means? Because shechem im basar kain, certainly if after that salig bedargu the it starts leaving zer anpin. So it could be that it's inside of zer anpin, but what? I don't quite get it. It lost its power, or because of something that happened down below as a result of that, it can't shine into zer anpin in the nook. I don't know. Us is chashka nukva. So then we understand there's nothing in zer anpin to shine to the nukva, because what we're concerned about is the light of Abba. Shehu malchus adkan, which she represents malchus. That's what it is. So let's look at this here, the next one. Let's go on and see if we could get some more refinement out of this. He says, Rei b'zover chai. Now let's go over to there. He says, the azech bekan the fidarko, et the ayrech bekan zivug the rasis kli the bia rishon. So here we got the yichud that makes a kli. So we heard these words. So let's see how they go. Shehu sod shem av shenechlach l'chatzayim. So why he said this, I'm not sure, because tell me, he said the hainu shnei shemus ben. So I don't really quite understand the math. He says that the name Av, which is 72, is divided into two, but he wants to say that is to say that it's divided into two names of Ben. That's 104, 52 and 52. So 1/2 of the 52 there stays in zer anpin. But it has another half, a chetzia, the genasa the zer anpin, the nukva ein sham. No. So this is what it's explaining here, and that's what it's saying. So let's just pick this up right here, this little idea. He says every night, before you go to bed, you're going to say the bracha of a mapil. The ruach that's inside of her, it goes backwards and it leaves. So then what happens to it? That ruach that was making her a kli is not there anymore. And it goes back to its root, b'das zer anpin. Now he says specifically where. He says it's in the das of zer anpin. I'm going to read it out just so we can hear what the ideas. We'll come back to Yud Aleph just a little bit there. V'oz is yached yud. Then you see that there's a yichud that takes place of the yud, or that not. Excuse me, I'm translating it wrong. The yud becomes isolated. V'hu mitam shenidbku ben y. Shenid bonkim shnei hachetzoyim la'echad, because now you're pulling the one of the 52, as you said 52. We're taking some of the 52, we're taking it out of. We're splitting it back and bringing it back to where it came from. And then the part that's in the nukva leaves also. The goes up during its different levels, higher and higher. That into the das, which is really where it came from. That's where its root is. The nistala gam mimenu also leaves that min zer anpin. Be'ez hadormita, at the time of the dormita, the shorshu makora la'ayin elyon. So there's something called the ayin elyon. Let me see, I can't read this. So he says, I Ad Khan, number Yud Gimel. Okay, so what was he talking about there? So let's just pick up over here where he had said, the first word on the line, number test, should be V'chetzio Nosen L'Zer Anpin the Nukva Ein Sham. So that's just the idea that how he got to this number. Let's see, if you take 52 from 72, what do you got? You get 20. So I don't really understand his language, but anyway, he says that the or that comes in gets split into two 52s. So he said V'chetzio Nosen Zer Anpin the Nukva Ein Sham. Let's get into this. The ruach that was placed into her originally, maybe he means the one that making her into a kli. The kli. It goes back to where it came from and it leaves. And it goes back into its root in the das of Zeranpin. Now, let's see if we can get some more to try to illuminate us on this. So he says, Reba Eitz Chaim, look over to the Eitz Chaim, V'zel the Shund of an Indian, who? The Indian is what? Ki kol laila kasha'ana oimreim beberchus amapel. Now you're going to say that, right? In that particular phrase, Oz haku rucha shebagavah, then the ruach that's inside of her, choser amistalik. So that's the quote. We just heard that. So let me see, where am I at now? He says, "V'nidbak b'mekoro b'zer anpen," and it goes back to its root, which came from where? It came from zer anpen. Vein hanekeva me'ira b'tzido, so there's no light coming from her anymore. Ela b'tzad habina shehi habona es hatzala. So let me say this differently. I read it wrong. He said, "Nekeva me'ira mitzido." So there's nothing shining from his. I guess mitzido means from the side of Zeranpin. There's nothing shining into. What happens? Ela misad bina shehi habayna chasatzala, because bina is the one that builds up the nukva. Ad kan. So we know that. There's nothing fancy about that. The light of Zeranpin is not shining in her anymore, but she does have the light of Ima. We have that over there. Ein Sham, another language over there. Mihu yesh lama od. So of course over there. Lama bir the ire kan b'chadormita shebekol laila. Why are we talking over here about this hamapil, which happens every time before we go to bed? Halo be'etz chaim, because in Eitz Chaim, mavur sham the maimer the Sifra that's in Yuta, that what we're talking about here. Kan ira bebida rishona. It's not talking about what happens every night before you go to bed. It's talking about the bia rishona. The Brias Olam, that has to do with the Brias of Olam. Now, it will come back and say again, what exactly is the difference between these two? So, the Brias Rishon is way back in Olam Atzilus. It's not having to do with what we're saying down here, or it does it, but it says it doesn't have anything to do with what we're saying down here. Instead, it has to do with the Bia Rishona for the making of a Kli, the Bia Rishona. Aleph Ein Sham, so it's going on that. It's not clear to me exactly what he's saying yet. So let's hope we pick it. I can understand it a little bit better. He says, okay, so he says, Reba Eitz Chaim, excuse me, we did that. So now we're going to come after number Yud Aleph, and it's going to say, Oz is Yached Yud. Then the Yud becomes isolated. That's why I believe it said, V'hu mitam shenidbakim Shnei chachitzayim la'echad, and reason why. Now here it sounds like something else. Here it means it sounds like to me. I mean that it's making a yichud. Another becomes it's not isolated. Oz is yached yud. The yud comes back. The yud, which represents the number 72. Let's say what he had said previously, that it represents Abba. Because now you're bringing possibly the Ataras Yesod and the Yesod back into oneness again. I'm not sure. So let's see. That's where that was. Okay, we're still going. So what happens is that the lower half, which is the lower 52, Shebenukva, it starts moving up, back into Das, which is where it originally all this shefa poured out from. With the stala gam mimena, but then it leaves that too, min zer anpin, that it's completely out of zer anpin. We were talking about the das of zer anpin. Be'esa dormita, at the time of the dormita, l'shorshu makoro la'ayin elyon. So here we got a new phrase here, this phrase which says la'ayin elyon, and I translating it as the upper nothing. I don't know what else I would say. B, maybe you got something. So let's look over here and let's look at this. We have a yud base here. We could get this in, and that will be our shir today. Ritzon aloma the shorish makoro kul b'malo b'das elyon. What das elyon? He says it comes up above from the das elyon, the atik, and then it goes from atik and Eric Anpen, hanikra ayin elyon. Eric Anpen is called the upper nothing. I don't know if I'm mischaracterizing that. Brebe eitz chaim le'el sham. So look up there. V'zel the shona b'diluk. And what are we talking about? So we could say that the Bia Rishona is like, well, we've seen things about this already, what it had to do with the concept of Rayo. But here he's using the number 52. So he says that this Ruach, Shenoisin Ba Bia Rishona, who Nimshach Min Das, the Abba, it really ultimately comes from the Das of Abba. So when we talk about the Ruach and the Das of Abba, Nimshach mechadasa elyon hachoifef alav hachofef al Abba ve'ima. So here we're talking about the beard of Eric Anpen, which surrounds Abba ve'ima. V'hu mazel yud gimel, and what specifically is it? The dikna the dika. So here we're talking about the beard of Eric Anpen. V'zecha v'nimshach Bo gam came mazel ches, but the shefa also is coming from the ches into the yud gimel ha'elyon b'mena, which is Abba ve'ima. V'hinich is called elohim shochol. So the beginning of the pouring out of all this, badas ha'elyon the atik yomim. This is coming from the das of atik, which is a nikra, which is part of the racial isyada. Back to the shar atik. So it's really coming from a place that's unknowable. Because this particular das winds up being gonus ben gulgolta umocha de Eric Anpen. So we're locating it here. So where's the chef ultimately coming from? So it's coming in from the das of Atik, which is located between the skull of Eric Anpen and the mucha de Eric Anpen, which is this area called the Avira. Vuhu bechinas hahu Avira. This is this. Again, this place called Avira, the Yosef al Kruma de Mucha de Eric Anpen, which stays here on the crust that covers over the Mocha de Eric Anpen. Okay, so let me just go back onto that last little part. He says, so in this we'll go in the word. The first word is Vihine Rashis Kol Elohim Shachos. I think that's where we're at. Where does the shefa come from? Where can we identify the origin of the shefa? Because you're going into the ayin elyon, you're going into nothing. Hu medas elyon da'atik. It coming from, we can recognize it as the das elyon da'atik yamem and nikra reish the lo isya, which is called the unknowable head. In other words, it's nothing there that we can identify, but we're identifying it here as the source of this shefa that's ultimately going to wind up in the nook and then leave. So now he's telling us, where is this das manifest? In a place that's hidden between the skull of Eric Anpen and the mochas timo of Eric Anpen. And what is it between those two places? It's identified, and we know that from the Idra, we know that this is considered to be bechinas avira. It's called avira. The Yosef al kruma the mucha, that it's sitting on top of a covering over the mocha the Eric Anpen Adgan. So that's how we can understand it. That's it for today. Thank you for learning with me. Call to.